first of all, this is not a panel, but is meant to be an uncomfortable conversation among foundations. So a conversation that will be follow up with other two similar conversations in the coming 2 days, also among foundations, and we hope that can be a very meaningful, authentic, even a bit uncomfortable, even a bit going out of our comfort zone. So the focus is on trust-based funding and how and why trust is a key to any kind of transformation, innovation, and system change process that we want to achieve. So Ariadna Bardolet and Simona Torre. Ariadna is from La Caixa Foundation, one of the biggest banking origin foundation and corporate in the world. And Simona Torre is also from one of the big 5 corporate foundations in the Italian Fondazione Accenture. I've been asked by Elena to give a few minutes of scenario and introduction from my very privileged point of view of Bird Eye as the national network of foundation in Italy and Filea Philanthropy Europe Association. So we start from the assumption that we know that today, according to Impact Europe reports, foundation and philanthropic organization represents only 1% of the impact capital providers for impact entrepreneurs and enterprises. But we also know that in theory, foundations and philanthropic organizations have exactly that kind of total risk, flexible, patient, long-term, empathic capital that impact enterprises desperately need, especially in the early stages and as catalytic capital, as Mirna Atalla yesterday of Alfanar showed us so well for the MENA region. I refer not necessarily to endowment management, because it's a bit, especially for banking origin foundation, a different kind of investment committee and so on, and different people. And let's stay on the programmatic spending side of foundation and philanthropic organization that has been so long overlooked by impact gurus in the last 20 years. So impact grant, recoverable grant, and also strategic impact-oriented use of grant making. So I just want to, that this is the theory, so that foundation have really this amazing quality of capital, but the reality check tell us that actually in the last 35 years, foundation have also followed the role model of main public donor and really given a very restricted grants, very restricted to projects, to list of activities, to tiny KPIs, measuring very specific and quantitative things, not necessarily the right ones, and also underinvesting dramatically in the organization. So Stanford Social Innovation Reviews showed us the survey cycle since 2009. So we have a very different approach from trust-based philanthropy. So this is why the conversation is so important. So the mainstream approach is still very much on what we have just highlighted on the left side of this slide. I want to quote something that Elena and I have loved in one of the articles of Otto Scharmer, Given in a Time of Disruption. So Otto Scharmer, the Professor Scharmer yesterday, the image is more linear, but we put in this kind of quadranti, in this kind of because we want, the aim is not judgment, the aim is not really focusing on the good, but really trying to stay on the congruency. So here the issue is about system change, and we know, because there is a literature now, so the awareness is there, that a philanthropy that is very much focused on the control of the input, so input focus, is the occasional giving, intervening on problems that are problem symptoms and not on the root causes and so on, which also save lives and alleviate poverty and suffering. So I'm not saying that should we throw the baby with the bath in water. And then, according to this article of Professor Scharmer, we have philanthropy 2.0 and philanthropy 3.0. So the 2.0 very much focus on outcome and on a funding practice that is very transactional, measurable, and driven by the donor's metrics. And then the 3.0 that is more collaborative and based on the participation of different stakeholders, including the partners, or in Italy, so-called beneficiaries. Then, of course, we have a philanthropy 4.0 that has a very trust-based, relational, quality of relational-based activities, where the collective agency to co-create together processes that enable to reach missions that are oriented to to address the systemic causes and have a vision of systemic change. So the literature is there. The awareness about the congruency on not only what we should do, but how and why, I think it could be a meaningful starting point for our conversation. So now, we have, first I would start with Ariadna. And the question will be the same for Simona as well. What is your organization learning about trust-based funding, and which are the questions your organization is asking in this quite of paradigmatic shift, cultural shift, and what are the bettering practices that you are already pioneering and piloting?
Can I start?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Carola. First of all, I would like to thank Elena for inviting us, Elena and the team, for this amazing organization of this CEOC. I'm really surprised. I'm very happy to come from Spain to be here with all of you, and I'm learning a lot from all the speakers and all the colleagues that I have met here. So I know that, Carola, you have introduced very quickly La Caixa Foundation, but I think it's very important, very shortly, to explain that we have more than 100 years. We were launched in 1904 as a savings bank. In 2014, due to European regulations, we changed our legal structure, and today we are a banking foundation with an independent asset management vehicle that has a portfolio of companies that at the same time they provide the budget for the La Caixa Foundation. In this portfolio of companies, there's one of the most important financial institutions in Spain called CaixaBank. And this is also very important because we have different elements in the same structure. We have the philanthropy side, but also we have the financial structure. Regarding your questions, Carola, regarding the learnings, we speak a lot with the colleagues about this question. What is the trust-based funding with our partners? And we agree that there are two values that are very important for the philanthropic organizations. One is the humility. That is really, really a key element for our work, and we need to work with the teams that have this value. And the other one is the empathy, because we work in a very vulnerable regions with very vulnerable people, and we need to really understand what are the needs. And this is my second point. We need, from philanthropic organizations, to promote listening processes, to try to really identify and to map what are the really needs of the people, of the communities, of the entrepreneurships that we want to work with. And also we need to provide a co-creation environment with the different actors involved, like public administration, financial institutions, civil society organizations, social companies, etc. We need to leave our role of controllers to move to a role of connectors, facilitators. No? We need to change our minds, and to also know that we need to move the governance of our activities, of the programs that we are running, to the localization. But we have read recently some articles regarding this, and we are still a lot to improve. I recommend you an article of the London School of Economics that called The Emperor's New Clothes, Why Localization Still Leaves Power in Other Hands, you know, Carola. It's a very interesting article. And at the end, we need to work in a more horizontal relation, with less bureaucracy, with more flexibility. And the questions that we are raising internally in the organization, like La Caixa Foundation, now we are working in the new strategic plan for the next 5 years, and all the different lines of action we are preparing for this strategy. We have an important focus on socio-economic development and social entrepreneurship. And one of the main questions that we raise is, what is success for us? But what is the impact that we want to achieve? But especially, what is the impact that we need to achieve for our partners? What they want, what they really want. And this connection is what we need to work with. But also, we speak a lot about we all want to work, or we are working on transformation and systemic change. But at the end of the day, what is our contribution on this? No, it's not the same. It's easier if we work in, as you mentioned, in isolated initiatives, in projects. But we need to, as I said, to listen better, to try to understand better the narrative of the people, of the communities, of the entrepreneurship that we are working with. We need to systematize this knowledge sharing, how we can best use all the knowledge sharing that we are collecting between all the actors that are involved in one ecosystem. And in this sense, we need to use technology, we need to use artificial intelligence, and we want that in some time we are working in platforms, and we would like that in some time we could have predictions of what works, what are the kind of small and medium businesses that we are working with that works, and what are the other that doesn't work. And at the end of the day, we need to also, we usually define the methods of evaluation, the metrics of evaluation for our partners, but who is evaluating us? No? And this is a very important question that we are also raising now. And we think about long-term commitment, but this means that we need collaboration, a strong collaboration with the same actors in one ecosystem to promote this social entrepreneurship. But what is the time to finish, to leave the context where we are working? I know that.
Very good questions.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very important. I think it tells a lot that such a big player as La Caixa is asking the good questions, the tough questions.
Thank you, Carola. I try to give a positive message. I represent today a corporate foundation, so we are not a grant-making foundation in the traditional sense, meaning that we don't have endowment resources to distribute. Still, we have some grant-making capability and capacity, and I will go back to this in a minute. We are rather positioned as an operational foundation, which means that we design and build programs with a scope, counting on a steady operational team, and driven by the belief that only putting together and combining diverse experiences, competencies, and resources coming from different sources, a project can be, let's say, successful. What I can say that we have seen and learned, especially in the past few years, in terms of trust-based funding, is dual. Because in some cases, I can bring an experience as recipient of trust-based funding, and in some other as grant makers. In the case of recipient, when we have the role of recipient, because as I was saying, there are some projects that we build that need resources coming from different sources. I have to say that surprisingly, especially in the past few years, it's increasing the number of organizations, mainly corporate foundations, we share the same mission with, of course, who decide to entrust us with and to join the project and the programs driven by us in a way that it's passing through a very accurate and careful attention to what the mission of the project, how we drive the project, which people is involved in guiding this project, which are the medium and long-term perspective of the project, and once they are convinced about that, the funding is provided upfront, and the requirements in terms of reporting are very light. Of course, there is a continuous open dialogue. We are the first ones to be happy, and they are to be involved in the key moment of the program. But the point is especially to be very, very open and very transparent in discussing what works and what not, what can be improved, what can be changed, if it makes sense to push the program itself. And so I think this is something very positive, and it's a very good sign of the fact that it can be done, and that if there is an upfront, very careful understanding of what you are funding, it can be very, very, very useful in the following phases, without being obsessed by reporting numbers, which are of course very important indicators, KPIs. I mean, it's clear, but cannot be the center of the discussion, of the initial choice, and on the evaluation of the decision, if it was a good or a bad decision. Because again, so this is our experience when our role is to be the recipient of the funding. And since I was saying that we also have some grant making capacity, I have to say that even in this case, we have always interpreted funding as something that you do to enable especially people to do something. So it's not that we fund a project, that we fund an organization. In the end, what we understand is that the decision is driven by the people behind the project, behind the organization. And the only thing you can do against people is trust them. And so in the end, I believe that this is the main point.
People, organization, and I would add processes, no? More than linear projects.
Because if I can add just a little thing, Carola, it's clear that sometimes you fail in funding or investing in a project. But the point is that if you did that because you trusted the people, maybe that specific project is not going to work. But then if you invested in people, maybe the same people can do something better afterwards, and your investment was not a risk.
And maybe we can just redefine what he intend for failure and what is risk-taking, no? Because, I mean, actually there is no innovation nor transformation without risk and without embracing the opportunity of learning. And I particularly appreciate your point, moving from compliance and control to a learning process, no? And so in this perspective, my question to you, Simona, and then to Ariadna is, in a mainstream situation where, of course, trust is not yet there, actually lack of trust is a feature of the relationship between foundations and partner organizations, impact entrepreneurs and enterprises. What do you see as the main obstacles to endorse this trust-based approach? Yesterday we had a wonderful meeting in Compagnia di San Paolo with Otto, and for example, conservative boards was, but also competencies internal to our organizations, no? The way the reporting is done, the way has been done so far for the last 35 years, so the accounting and so on. What would be in your organization the main obstacles that you see is needed to overcome?
Honestly, as I was saying even yesterday in the meeting with Otto, maybe we are in a special lucky position because the company we have behind, I mean the DNA of the corporate we have behind is just to innovate, to be always say quick in doing things, and especially innovative again, being pioneer in terms of innovation and taking also some risk. But this is the only interest the company has is in his own business, which reflects also to the foundation. So in our case, really there is no obstacle. What we see instead is anytime we try to involve in some innovative projects other organizations, sometimes the feeling is that maybe the team involved in the operational staff would be eager to do something innovative, different, even, let me say, risky, between brackets, but risky. And but they are often stopped by very conservative governance, who doesn't like to take reputational risk, or even, I would say, they want to live, let's say, with
in a world of all good news and beauty context.
Exactly.
Okay. What about you, Ariadna?
Yes, so we think that if we work with this systemic view, with the view of transformation, and we move from different methodologies, from different points of views, we work in this case with multiple actors, with different dynamics, and this means that it requires trained people. So the skills are not the same if you work in an isolated initiative with a very organized reporting, than if you have to organize meetings, you have to travel to the field, you have to have another kind of dialogue with your partners. we need to change the communication issues in our philanthropic organization. So we are very used to work with a kind of linear communication, and this means that we need to work in a more horizontal way. We need to accept mistakes, of course, and we need to share our mistakes with our board, with our stakeholders. In our case, we have a lot of companies behind. And if we speak about systemic change, we need, I think that it was said a lot yesterday, we need to change first the cultural barriers. No? And we have one specific example in India where we work with safe mobility networks of women that are promoting different entrepreneurships. And they spend a lot of time, firstly, to listen again the needs of the communities, to understand that they need to move and to start these entrepreneurships, and they spend a lot of time and resources doing this cultural change before starting the different businesses, no? And I think that it's also important, just two more elements. The indicators of impact and success, as I said at the beginning, are really different. In the case of long-term commitment, we have an intangible results and how we manage with this. And also, in our case, the question here is how we can combine better the grants, the work that we are doing to strengthen these organizations, to help them to be more independent, etc., and to connect with the impact investment strategies to engage the financial institutions in order to cover all the phases of the social entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. So our time is mostly over, but I think it was very nice to learn how much your organization is really asking question and really trying to find new answers. And I think that in the last 4 years, 5 years, really philanthropy has done it every day more intentionally. So thank you so much, Simona and Ariadna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carola.